Good morning, everyone. I imagine that's probably the first time that someone said good morning to you today, but it is indeed a really good morning. I mean, this is pretty spectacular. My morning actually started bright and early. I was over in the fitness center at about 6:30, and I was alone, and I was looking out to the west, and if you haven't been in our fitness center, it's got a wall of windows that looks out to the west, and the moon was up, and it was really bright, and there was mist hanging in the hills, and then the sun came up. You could see the sun emerging above, and I thought about a conversation I had with Justin Klein, who's the chair of the Board of Trustees, when I told him I was leaving, and I said, what kind of sane person leaves a place that he loves and that's this awesome voluntarily? And he said, I'm not sure. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. A great crowd of parents that we have this morning, including at least 4 of my bosses. So bosses, thank you. Thank you for keeping me around. Our time this morning is intended to give you a little bit of a school update. Now, you've been here, many of you, for 24 hours, and you have a pretty good sense of what's going on. You have a pretty clear sense now through the lens of your teachers, your students' teachers and advisors. Perhaps you have a new lens through your own children's eyes about how school is happening and what's going on at Pomfret right now. But we carved this time out so I can share a couple of high-level things with you, and then certainly take a little time to answer any of your questions. I am joined today very happily and thankfully by members of the senior administrative team, the heads group as we call them. Could you all stand up, heads group people, please? Yeah, it's yeah. I have to say, I love this weekend for so many reasons. One of them, really sort of selfishly, is that people come up and say, oh, you're doing such a great job, the school, and no. This isn't about me. This is about an extraordinary group of people, both on the heads group and the faculty and staff. That's the team that puts together everything that you're experiencing with your kids. Those teachers you're having conferences with, that's the stuff that's making the big difference for your children. So I just want to make sure, as I talk to you, sort of for the final time, that I acknowledge the great good fortune that I have had to work with such an amazing heads group, a truly supportive and dynamic Board of Trustees, and the best boarding school faculty I've seen in 40 years. So that said, we can proceed. So thank you, heads group. Thank you if there are other teachers here in the room, faculty, staff, Josh, for everything Josh Lake does. And if you knew what Josh Lake did, your jaw might drop. So enough about me. How about we talk about Heather? So you've all seen this news, and this is really exciting news. And for me, the news is getting more exciting as I get to know Heather better. And she and I now have set up a regular conversation to talk about anything and everything that's on her mind. I'm sort of allowing her to set the agenda. I spoke with her for almost an hour on Wednesday. I know transitions are hard. You read about that all the time. This incredibly talented and informed, dedicated, and brilliant educator is going to make that transition much easier for us, I think. And in time, you're going to be singing her praises. I truly believe that. She is a gifted educator who's asking all the right questions. She is super excited about joining the Pomfret School community. And we too, for having such an extraordinary future leader joining us. We're talking about when we'll get her to campus again to meet with students and faculty, probably a little bit later in the year. She still has a full-time job, as I reminded her, because she really wants to dig in. But she is chomping at the bit and really eager to get going. Part of what we're doing this year, I'm not going to explain too much about this. We'll start a little bit before that. Last year, I had conversations with the heads group about how we are thinking more critically about leadership growth and development, leadership feedback and evaluation. I hadn't arrived, and I think the heads group would agree, that we hadn't arrived at a really good system for evaluating administrative growth and performance, nor a good way for administrators to self-reflect and identify those areas, and I include myself in this, in the process of professional growth. Gwyneth Connell, who's the director of the Grauer Institute, referred me to a woman named Dr. Kristen Hoynes. And she's a professional leadership coach with a real focus on educational leadership. And I began a conversation with Kristen that started as a conversation about just the heads group and how we help grow the heads group in their own work. And then it evolved into a conversation about how we could incorporate this nice person into the process. And I don't know that this has happened before, but we have begun a really deep dive with Kristen Hoynes as a heads group and as a board of trustees to develop shared language about leadership, around growth, around the evaluation process. The board is doing their own version of work with Kristen. This is one of the toys that we're using to sort of examine our own leadership and receive feedback from others about our own leadership. And Kristen is joining that process. She will join us a week from this coming Monday for the first time. She will join Heads Group as we talk about leadership and developing shared understandings of leadership and evaluation and growth. And the Board of Trustees will spend another 90 minutes with Kristen Hoynes, this consultant, at the upcoming board meeting in December, having spent 2.5 hours with her at a board meeting in September. So I'm really excited about this work and about what it promises in terms of improving the transition process for Kristen. For Heather. There won't be, I don't think, too many secrets for Heather when she comes in following this work that we're doing with Kristen. Raise your hand if you've been in Vista. Okay, if you haven't been in Vista, get over to Vista. I just went over to hang out in Vista 15, 20 minutes ago, and I saw Vivian. Vivian, where are you? I was just looking at you, yeah. Vivian is one of, a future boss of mine. And she was standing out on the trust observation deck, just looking out at the beautiful day. And I thought I was going to go over there and have a little peace and quiet, but I didn't. I had a lovely conversation with Vivian in this amazing building. Our students are taking advantage of it in all the right ways and some of the wrong ways. And one of the things Josh Lake had to do at a recent school meeting, I wasn't actually there for it, I kind of wish I had been, was talk about the ways that we shouldn't be using Vista, like having wheelchair races in the hallways. In any case, the kids are loving this space. And I think if you've been in the space and you can see how we are using the space in a different way from any other academic building I've ever seen, it's really, really exciting. That place is occupied with students from 7:30 in the morning until 10 at night. Almost without stop. This has been a game-changing building, perhaps even a little bit more than we might have anticipated when we began the process and began really realizing that dream to introduce this new academic space to campus. It has been a home run in every conceivable way. There's a great little infographic as you walk in Vista now, and it's on your left as you walk in, and it talks about the design of the outside of the building, the shell of the building. If you haven't stopped to look at that and to read it, which I just did, and I already knew something about it, it's really pretty cool, right? I'm not going to give away any more secrets, but take a look at the infographic as you walk into Vista, because this building has so many thoughtful design elements, and this one is one that you probably wouldn't have seen, wouldn't recognize, but is differentiating. The Amplify campaign, we are in what we hope and believe will be the last year of the Amplify campaign. You can see some pretty impressive numbers here. We have an $80 million goal, which is twice as large a goal for a campaign as the school has ever had. 40 million was our previous high. We are currently sitting at about $76.7 million toward that $80 million goal. And it's our intention, and we have every intention and confidence that we will complete this campaign by June 30th. And you can see a little bit here how that's all divided up. The science building, now box checked. We're doing really well there. The other two, if you can see them, we have the access and affordability, centrally focused around financial aid, increasing financial aid dollars and endowment, and then increasing endowment to support teaching and learning through professional growth opportunities and compensation for faculty and staff. So those are sort of the three capital pieces of the capital budget or capital campaign. And then when you add the annual fund or the Pomfret fund, that turns it into what's called a comprehensive campaign. So this is a comprehensive campaign. Our $80 million includes this approximately $23 million that we're trying to raise for the Pomfret fund over the life of the campaign. A reminder for those who aren't aware and haven't heard it, and this is important, you heard it last night, between 11 and 12% of our operating dollars annually come from the Pomfret Fund. That is, the money we raise, and Will Mitchell, who's the Director of Advancement, you raise your hand there, Will. Will and his team are trying to raise $2.9 million. I said this last night, but again, that $2 million, that bought last night's food, right? That's all the goodies that you're getting. That's paying the teachers that your children are learning from. So that's a critical aspect of what we're trying to do. So thank you in advance again for those who have been able to support or will support the Pomfret Fund. Enrollment, we had a really good year in enrollment. When all was said and done, we ended up with 358 students. We have one student who has stepped away. That came about from an extraordinary effort by Susan Mantia-Goen and her team. What we have learned is that there are virtually no schools anymore who are filled on April 10th. That used to be the date, right? You had to send in your deposits on April 10th, and every school was done. That's not true for any school that I know of anymore. Even the most highly selective schools are still filling beds after April 10th. We're no different. And we filled beds to the tune, ultimately, of that number you see there. The most, this number here, the most diverse Pomfret school has ever been. The most diverse student body we've ever had. A goal that we established many years ago to have 25% students of color at the school. This year, for the first time, is over that number and is at 28%. A source of enormous pride, I think, for this institution. 29 countries, 27 states, just a richly diverse student body who are manifesting their talents in so many different ways in so many different areas across campus. So we try to keep around that 85% boarding student number, and that's been fairly consistent over about the past 8 or 10 years. This is where they come from in the US. This is not a political statement. This is not a political map. This isn't red and blue. If it were red and blue, I couldn't make any comments about the red and blue. But get a little bit of a sense of where our students are coming from domestically, and a little bit of a sense of where our students are coming from internationally. Pretty impressive. No one from Greenland. What's up with that? Anyone have any friends or cousins in Greenland with school-age children who are mission appropriate? If you do, let us know. We'd love to tackle Greenland. But otherwise, again, we believe deeply that the diversity and the perspectives that students from across the world, not just across our country, but across the world, bring into our classrooms, bring into this community, around the dining table, around the advisee dinner table, just enriches the experience for all of our students and for our faculty as well. So we are really, really pleased about this level of diversity, and some new countries on here this year as well. And then there's this. How many of you have read this book? A handful of hands. If you're a parent of a teenager, this is my latest strong recommendation. It's pretty sobering, actually. And it's sobering because it's pretty well researched and informed, tracking the increase in anxiety and depression in adolescents over the past decade or so. And Jonathan Haidt, very well-known social psychologist, has written this. He's written a whole bunch of other things. This right now is the book du jour, if you will, in the field of adolescent education. And schools all over the country, educators all over the country, and I hope parents all over our community are reading this and paying attention to what Dr. Haidt is saying. There are reasons that we should be concerned about the spike in anxiety, and there are things that we can do to address some of the spikes in anxiety. Here at Pomfret, probably most conspicuously, the work that we're doing around well-being is unprecedented. I don't know another independent school that has an academic well-being department. All of your children are required, if they come in as ninth graders, to take 3 well-being courses in order to graduate from Pomfret. Right? This is work that's focused on mental wellness, on physical wellness, on anxiety, sort of education about how to thrive in a world where anxiety is going to be, and already is for so many adolescents, a sort of ceaseless, endless reality. And that sounds kind of pessimistic. But if we're not talking with our kids about these issues, if we're not helping them develop skills to address anxiety and stress, those aren't going away in college. You know, for you parents of seniors whose kids are stressed about college, that college acceptance doesn't actually make all stress go away, right? And so we are really focused on this. This is one of the summer reads that faculty did this summer. And again, it's a pretty easy read, one that I would encourage you as parents to digest. And it makes for really interesting conversations with kids. How else are we doing it? Oh, phones. Yeah. One of those sources of stress, and the one that is central to the thesis here, is the emphasis on social media and phones as the source of the anxiety that our kids are feeling. There are some people who are arguing with some of his data, and read the book. Some of his data is really compelling as it relates to telephones. Not telephones, smartphones, right? Obviously, this is put up for all of the older generations' enjoyment. Thank you, Gary Dow, wherever you are, for finding this photo for me. We know, and Haidt has made it clear, and Haidt is not the only person who has done research on the impact of social media on adolescent well-being. He's just the latest sort of loud voice and intelligent voice who's speaking about it. At Pomfret, we've taken steps to try to help our students navigate this, right? Cell phones are not allowed in this room. They're not allowed in chapel. Every classroom has a basket or a box into which you put your cell phones when you enter the classroom, right? Cell phones are not allowed at meals, Monday morning through Friday dinner. There are baskets on the table. Now, I would say, if I'm using an old-fashioned grading system from back in the day, that your kids are doing about B- work on that one. They're getting better. I think they started the year at sort of a D+, to speak the lingua franca of our generation. I've spoken at some length, and I'm using their lack of success in the dining hall a little bit as a fulcrum for a conversation about, should we do more with cell phones? There are now dozens of schools, and there are a whole bunch. Don't know off the top of my head, but I know at least our arch nemesis, Millbrook School, my old school, which is a fine little school, Taft School, 3 schools that have banned cell phones during the school day. 7:30 a.m. until 3:30 p.m., no cell phones visible anywhere, right? Not walking around campus. One of the things I noticed, and I saw this yesterday, I was standing out, I placed myself immediately outside of Vista at the end of a class period. What do you think I saw? Every single student, I counted 16 out of 17 students, came out of the building holding and looking at their phone. 16 out of 17. What are they doing then? What are they checking? What are they looking for? They're looking for what they missed during that 70-minute block. So what St. George's and Millbrook and Taft have done, they've said no cell phones during the class day. And I've spoken to the heads of 2 of those schools, and they said for a short period of time there was an adjustment, and the kids were all like this, and some parents were all like this. And then a magical thing happened. Students realized that their fear of missing out was not isolated. Everyone was missing out. And if everyone's missing out, you're not missing out. Magical, right? And I've heard from the head, from Mike Wirtz at St. George's and from Peter Becker at Taft, that the climate on campus is fundamentally different, shifted in a positive way. And the students, deep breath, the students get it. They've made the adjustment. They've bought in. There was a piece, I don't know if anyone saw the evening news last night. I'm sorry for the digression, but there was a piece on the evening news about an organization that takes low-income kids out into the hills in Blairstown, New Jersey, of all places. And the first thing they do is they take cell phones away from these kids for 3 days. And at the end of 3 days, they don't miss them. They don't miss them because they're having conversations. They're connecting with people in real and valid ways. I don't know what's coming for Pomfret, but I have this phone-free schools administrative toolkit that I can lean on. Isn't this exciting? I don't know if we're going to go phone-free during the class day. It's a possibility, and I know that may present some concern for parents. We would make sure to communicate in advance. If we were to make that decision, we would let you know. We're not taking their phones forever. And, of course, if you ever needed to find your child, we would be able to find your child. Because guess what? For 114 years of this school's existence, no one had a cell phone. And students did just fine. maybe even better than fine. So we're having the conversations. I'm working with the student government leaders, Seb and Charmaine primarily, around these conversations. No students want their phones taken away. But what I'm planning to do is to get some testimonials from students at other schools, just to share. And one of the ideas I have is that maybe we do a phone-free Friday or a tech-free Tuesday or something, just to plant some seeds that you can actually survive without a phone for 8 hours. It's possible. So, cell phones. One of the other things we're doing, and Dawn, I might call on you to talk a little bit about this. In preparation, and sorry, I should have given you a hands up. In preparation for this year, and following our concerns last year about social media use and its rampant use, and at times unhealthy use, we partnered with an organization called the Social Institute to come in and work with our 9th and 10th graders to help them better understand social media. Not just social media, but how social media is kind of using you and manipulating you, what it can do to you mentally, psychologically, emotionally. What might you add?
Yeah, thank you for that. We're really excited about this. This is a program that we introduced to our 9th and 10th graders, working in classroom-sized cohorts, delivering dedicated curricula monthly. Stephen Van Hosen, who is a Form Dean, Katie Forrestal, another Form Dean, and I will lead that charge, and we're really excited about it. One of the things I can say is that sometimes social media programming is doom and gloom. It talks about the cognitive decline, the anxiety raising, the FOMO, the addiction. Well, we'll address some of that, but what I really like about the Social Institute is the program is really speaking about how can we win with this technology rather than what to avoid. And so by creating a positive spin and demonstrating and practicing how we can lean into this space, use these tools effectively, still connect with one another in really deep and important ways, we think we'll gain some traction. We're really excited about it. The entire school community, actually, during our orientation, experienced the first mini lesson from When It's Social. Really positive reviews from kids. It's entertaining. It's thought-provoking. It creates conversation space. It's not a sit and get. It's a come together and discuss and learn. And so we're really excited about it. Our first ones will be at the very tail end of October.
Thank you. We had a shift this year in leadership, and I know some of you parents heard about this. We found in years past that there were a handful of students who were disproportionately weighted with leadership responsibilities. We would have students who were involved in 5 or 6 or 7 leadership positions. And we started doing a little bit of mental math. If you're involved in that many, how much quality time and attention are you dedicating to these positions? And so Charlotte McMahon, who's our Dean of Students, she's on maternity leave as we speak, and thank Pat Boyd for stepping in again in a maternity leave situation. Charlotte came up with this concept of a leadership academy, right? She was at least partially involved in that, but also this process of applying for leadership positions at Pomfret. And this went over kind of like a mid-weight lead balloon with our students, you know. Some of them got it and the balloon didn't thunk to the floor. Others, it was a big thunk because we had a handful of students who were heavily, heavily invested in tons of different areas. The idea here is both to distribute leadership positions amongst our very, very capable students and also give individual students, when they're involved in a role, an appropriate amount of time to dedicate to those roles. And so you can see, for example, if you are the president or vice president of the student body, That's your leadership, right? In the past, you could be the president or vice president and be a prefect and be a key head and be an affinity space leader. What we were finding is that those students were getting kind of stretched really, really thin in ways that wasn't serving them well. And they got, of course there was concern, well, what do I put on my resume? How do I sell my leadership qualities to seniors? And I believe that Charlotte and others, Don included, have been helping the students navigate that. If you're the student body president, as I told Seb and Charmaine, who was a leader in about 17 different clubs and activities last year, I said, Charmaine, if you're serving in your role really effectively as vice president of the student body, you're barely going to have time to breathe. And guess what? She's finding that that's kind of true. If she wants to do everything she can as vice president to serve the student body, it's a really, really time-consuming process. So we paired this with a very intentional leadership academy, which is effectively leadership training for all of our students in leadership positions. And that's a huge number. Off the top of your head, do you know how many?
It's over 100.
Yeah, it's 120 students in some leadership position at Pomfret, and they're getting very, very clear and intentional guidance on what it means to be a leader. So we're excited about this new approach to working with student leaders this year. Competency-based learning is something that you're hearing more and more about. As I shared yesterday with the PPAC, the Pomfret Parents Executive Council, this idea is with us at Pomfret. It is in us at Pomfret. It is increasingly who we are as an educational institution at Pomfret. Really importantly, we are not alone doing this. There are hundreds of schools, public and independent, across the country who are moving toward or already at being fully competency-based. There are lots of questions around competency-based learning that parents have. There are a few important concepts that I think are really, really important for you to understand about why we're doing this. One of them goes back to the Jonathan Haidt book on stress and anxiety, because one of the largest stressors we know, one of the largest stressors students face in their high school career is what? Grades. Grades. One of the largest sources of stress for students is grades. And so I've asked Gwyneth Connell, the director of the Grauer Institute, to share a couple of high-level whys and practices for you to better understand why we're going in this direction and the benefits for your children. So, Gwyneth.
Can everybody hear me okay? You all right in the back? Awesome. This transition to competency-based learning has been one of the most exciting projects of my career, especially because in a school that cares about students the way that Pomfret cares about students, this shift reflects an opportunity to have our academic program reflect that care in a really meaningful way. Our core value of growth is embodied in this shift in a really powerful way. You may have noticed that there's no better hypocrisy detector than a teenager. And when we tell them the things that we know as adults who have learned this the hard way in our life, that we learn from making mistakes, that failure is an opportunity to grow. All of those things are true. We know them in our hearts and from our lives. And yet, when we subscribe to a grading system that averages every mistake you've ever made into a single letter that is going to determine what options you have for your future, kids smell a rat and they're right. So this shift to a competency-based approach, first of all, demands of our teaching faculty that they actually determine ahead of time, and make transparent to students what they're supposed to know and be able to do as a consequence of having taken and engaged in this particular class, this learning experience. It's almost a little embarrassing that that's revolutionary, right? Like, hey, you're taking humanities too, American studies. Here's what we want you to get out of this. It's not supposed to be a mystery. An assessment is not supposed to be a surprise. And I bet all of us in our own academic experience remember those teachers who had trick questions, right? Remember those moments when the experience of learning was somehow a sneak attack. And that is not how you build trust. That is not how you make kids feel safe to take risks and to try new things. So by cultivating a system that says, we don't expect you to be perfect. We're going to tell you exactly what you need to know how to do. We're going to tell you we're going to tell you honestly where you are on the journey to getting there. And we're going to engage in conversation with you once you're there about what it might look like for you to go above and beyond. So it is this really personalized approach to meeting really consistent and clearly articulated standards. I was a nerd, it will surprise you to learn. When I was in high school, I was a kid who cared a lot about doing exactly what the teacher told me, about meeting every expectation and then some. I relate so hard to those kids who get a 98 on a test and say, well, why wasn't it 100? Where did those 2 points go? Right? Now that I'm a grown-up person in the world, I can understand that the difference between a 98 and a 100 is like really pretty meaningless most of the time. And so my hope for those students who have the luxury of worrying about the difference between 98 and 100, like wow, my hope for them is that they can take that extra energy they have, where before they were generating a lot more heat than light. You've all known those kids, right? Who will study an extra 3 hours, costing themselves well-being, costing themselves sleep, costing themselves this emotional turmoil to turn an A into an A+. Take that energy and find another learning outcome that you can apply it to. Talk to your teacher about what are you going to be asking me to do next term? Maybe I can get a jump on that. So we weight grades more heavily for more recent work. The last time a student is asked to demonstrate a particular learning outcome is approximately half of the score for that learning outcome over the course of the term. So if your kid, I've had a couple kids come and talk to me in the last week since midterm grades came out, and I had one girl, she was like, I think there's a problem with the system because I don't get E's. And that was like the end of the sentence. So I was like, okay, let's look at this. So we went in, and by the end of the term, this kid is not going to have to, but she has things she's still learning. And she's supposed to. If kids already know how to do all the things that we're trying to teach them, what are we doing, right? Like, we need to be able to tell kids, here's where you are now, and here's where you're headed, and here's how we're going to help you get there. And so, by the end of the term, those yellows, those parts, and it was so great because when I said to her, well, it looks like you're still developing independent proficiency in oral presentation, she said, well, yeah, the teacher told me that I was taking up too much airtime. So in the next time we did that, I was trying to hold back, and then he told me I didn't talk enough. And I said, oh, well, great. You're looking for that sweet spot. You're already responding to feedback. It sounds like maybe you overcorrected. So it sounds like you have a great conversation with your teacher coming up, where he can help guide you, and that's his responsibility, right? His responsibility is to help you find that sweet spot. where you're not hogging the whole conversation, but you're also not opting out, where you're finding those moments to contribute in a way that's going to be generative for the group as a whole. And when we have the opportunity to talk with kids about their learning, they feel better about it. We feel great about it. And so I'm conscious of time, and I can talk about this all day. So I'm happy to answer any questions if folks want to come up and chat with me afterwards. But just want to say thank you for your faith in us. I know this is weird, and it's been a little hard sometimes, that kids have about their phones. They also have it about their grades. They've gotten really used to being able to track it, like day traders watch the stock market, right? But we know it's not good for them. And so we're trying to flip the script a little bit, and I think it's working. So happy to talk about that later.
This is a multi-year process, and Gwyneth and I sort of began the process about 4 years ago, and we recognize, you see the little symbol in the top, the Mastery Transcript Consortium, which was actually just purchased by Educational Testing Services, which is a pretty powerful sign that competency-based learning is the future of education in America. That's not an overstatement. The end goal for the Mastery Transcript Consortium is effectively to do away with traditional grades, right? We are a member of the MTC, and we're not doing away with traditional grades. Your kids are still going to have end-of-term grades, end-of-year grades. It makes our hearts hurt a little bit that we're still translating the feedback into grades, because that ultimately is still a concern for us about how the kids are feeling. But it's a multi-year process. You probably can't read this from where you are, maybe in the front. This is, you've had some great exposure to college folks this year, this weekend. Dynamic presentation from our friend Grant Gosling, and then many of you participated in the college workshop this morning. This is, over the past 3 years where our students have attended college. One of the questions I get a lot now that we're in this competency-based learning model is, what does it mean for college? Well, this has nothing to do with that. What I can tell you, and it's more than anecdote because there's a fair amount of data on it, students who are graduating from schools that only offer a mastery transcript, that don't offer grades, are getting into every one of the most selective colleges in America. Right? Colleges, by law, have to read the transcript that schools send them, and an increasing number of schools are sending them a version of a mastery transcript that doesn't have grades, and colleges have to assess that. This obviously has nothing to do with that because we're not sending mastery transcripts yet. So a very, very impressive list here indeed. I was talking last night with a parent about the anxiety around college, and if you're the parent of a senior, or maybe even the parent of a junior, that stress is almost inevitable. And I would just love to point you and your kids back to this list and remind you and your children that in the 14 years that or 13 complete years that I've worked at Pomfret School, we have never had a student who didn't get into college. Never, right? Every single one of our kids, if they want, now we've had kids who have chosen to take gap years, kids who have chosen a different path from college, but every single student who has applied to colleges has gotten into a college, and most of the time into one of their top couple of choices. So just keep that in perspective. And this is a great testament, the diversity of schools. We've sent students to close to 200 colleges, different colleges, in the last 3 years. Some of you were around for LaSalle visiting alumnus with our friend. I call him friend because he actually has become a friend, with Jim Rothman, who you can see won a Nobel Prize back in 2013. He came and spoke with the students and then spoke at the dedication of Vista. But this is real deal science guy here who spoke with your kids about the value of scientific thinking, no matter what field they go into. And it was a wonderful lecture that he gave to the kids. And he's of a certain generation. He's an older gentleman, but the number of kids who were seeking him out after his talk and throughout the time he was here was amazing. The number of kids who were really curious about science. To have someone like this who's deeply, deeply connected to Pomfret and was intimately involved in helping us sort of envision what Vista could be was just a great experience. We have the 4th iteration of Pomfret Millbrook Day coming up, looking to go 4-0. Yes. Yes. Woo! That may be harder for some of you who have kids at both schools to swallow, but sorry, not sorry. So we are at Millbrook this year on November 9th, Saturday the 9th. We would love to have as many parents as possible if you're not too far from Millbrook, and I guess there are places that aren't too far from Millbrook. They would say the same thing about us. We'd love to have you out supporting us as we try to keep the winning streak alive. I'm happy because no matter what happens, I'm either 3-1 as a head of school or I'm 4-0. Either way, I get to go out as the head of school. I have nothing to do with whether we win or lose, but it feels good to be on the winning end. We are traveling. My wife and Will Mitchell and I are heading overseas in November. My final stopover in Asia, stops in Seoul, Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. Really looking forward to that. We have lots of great families from those parts of the world, and some of them are actually here, and bravo, we love having you here. Imagine hopping on an 18-hour flight for a 36-hour weekend. That's pretty impressive. But a lot of our folks from that part of the world aren't able to make it, so it's always, and I think it will be my 11th, maybe 12th trip to Asia to meet with our families. So really excited about that. So that's about what I got. I know this is run just a little bit late, but I think the next thing is lunch. So if there are any questions, those of you who want to go to lunch, please feel free. Are there any questions for me or anyone that I can point to on the administrative team, the heads group? You're like a bunch of teenagers. Yes, thank you.
Is there any way that we as parents can support the no cell phone policy?
Woo! I did not pay her to ask that question. That was an honest question. So if we're going in that direction, in all earnestness, your support of a move in that direction and helping your kids understand why the school is doing this would be helpful. I understand. How many of you would be in favor? Just so I can tell your children. That's a lot of hands. All right, I'm not going to say it's unanimous. I won't say it's unanimous, and I won't throw anyone under the bus for raising your hand with your kids. We understand around the ability to connect with kids. I also want you to read Jonathan Haidt's book for another reason, because he talks about parents who kind of overmanage their kids' lives and in part through technology, right? That they are maybe over present in their children's lives around this topic. I'm not making judgments, genuinely. I understand why you want to talk to your kids. I have 3 adult children, 32, 31, 27. I talk to them at least a couple of times a week, right? But I don't talk to them when they're at work, right? I wait until they're out of work. And being a student is kind of the adolescent version of work. So we haven't made that decision. We may explore it. I wanted to share it with you in case we go in this direction. I've already had a little bit of pushback from families, and I've had more encouragement from families who see the value. Read Jonathan Haidt's book, and if after reading it, you still disagree with that decision, I would love to have a conversation with you. It's that compelling. So thanks for the question. Yes?
Just talking about the other side of what hate writes about, how, we are too permissive with cell phones, but we're too restricted with letting kids free range and go out and explore.
Yeah.
Are there learnings that can be applied to policy there? Should kids be a little more free to leave campus? Should they be a little more free to be driven by kids their age who have driver's license? Are there any takeaways from that book that could cause you to think about course corrections?
Of course. It's always complicated, right? When your first concern is student safety, right? But what kind of safety are you talking about? You're talking about physical safety, emotional safety, psychological safety, and what are those boundaries? We know this, I think many of us know the statistics about what happens when you add an adolescent to a car being driven by an adolescent. And it doesn't just double the likelihood of an accident or serious accident or death, right? It's not, you add one, it makes it twice as likely. It actually increases it much, much higher. So that informs some of my thinking around allowing kids to drive in cars. I was at a school that allowed kids to drive in cars, and I had 3 tragedies, 1 death and 2 near deaths. Those sit with me. And we have a 500-acre campus, 500 acres, with dozens of miles of places to go and explore, trees to climb, rivers to play in. Literally, we want them to go out and do that. We want them to get off campus, and oftentimes when they get off campus, because it's not easy for them to get off campus, they're going with a faculty member. Should we be thinking about other ways to offer that little bit of freedom? Because you are right about Hate's point, right? We control and we control and we control, but we let kids spend 8 hours on a cell phone going to places that you don't want them to go. Are you aware of where your children are going on their cell phones? Not fully, you're not. Not fully. It's ugly. It's ugly where they're going. Not always. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not. So I appreciate the question, and it will trigger some thinking. Thank you. Yes?
With your time left in Pomfret, what initiative, project are you most focused on completing before graduation?
Amplify. Yeah, I mean, we really, to put a period at the end of, or an exclamation point at the end of the campaign, particularly now because the 2 aspects of the campaign that we haven't completed are around financial aid, long been a goal of mine, and supporting our faculty and staff, particularly around compensation. And I could have a slide up here about how undercompensated Pomfret faculty members are relative to their peers. It's bad. It's better than it was 4 years ago. We've narrowed the gap. But there's still a significant gap in what an average pay for a Pomfret faculty member is versus a faculty member at a peer school. That's something that's really important to me. I think the other, perhaps obvious, is going back to that second slide. It's helping Heather transition, making sure that she's prepared, that she knows the institution as best as she can before she gets here, that she has all of the tools that she will need to do her archaeological dig in year 1. She needs the shovels and the big shovels and the small shovels. She has to know where to look. So helping her be ready for that, to hit the ground running on July 1st and some of the work that we're doing with the Heads Group is involved in that. So I'm really keen on that. Yes, in the back.
I just wanted to thank you for thinking about parenting development with students here. I love what Mr. McConnell said about creating trust between student and student. I think this is mostly overlooked in academic institutions. And so we all need trust as adults in the workplace, right? So students need it as well. I just want to thank you because that is such an important aspect.
Thank you for that comment. I really appreciate it. Anything else? I'm not going anywhere. I'm here both all day today and all day, except for when I go to Asia a little bit, for the next 8 months or so. My door is open, my phone line is open, my email account is always open. As always, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you lending us your extraordinary kids and for all of the support you provide to me, to our team, to the student, the faculty at this school. I am just, I'm humbled with gratitude to you all. So I hope you enjoy this beautiful day and time with your kids. And now it's time to head off to lunch. Have a great day.